So I'm gonna be the emperor. Feel it in the bones.
Hey guys, Nui here, and I am currently, oh my god, jumping off of, currently sitting in Amar in Polis, and which is just an area in Allods right now, and I'm just wanted to, talk about how I feel about Allods after returning for a while, and where I feel like the game is currently at as far as everything. So I just wanted to talk for a little bit. I'm not going to be on for long, but I just wanted to talk for a little bit and explain my viewpoint on Allods and my disappointment in Allods' management, the way it was managed. That kind of, as far as I'm concerned, has very much damaged, if not irreversibly damaged, this game at this point. I've been playing this game for probably, I had been playing this game like consecutively for about 5 years straight at one point, and then I took a break probably about 2 years ago because I was just so disgusted with the way Allods at that time had been managed. I was disgusted with the way the cash shop was becoming so ridiculously unbalanced. I was disgusted with the way I would log in every day and players no longer wanted to play, and I was watching so many people that I had spent a lot of time in game with, in dungeon with, in raid with, just walk away from the game. And it got to the point where I couldn't keep playing anymore because I just wasn't having the enjoyment anymore. It was never really the game's fault. Like, the game itself of Allods itself was never really at fault. The game has been consistently very, very good. It's always been a very, very solid game as far as gameplay, as far as dungeon design, as far as gear progression, as far as pretty much PvP has always been solid. I mean, it's been unbalanced, but it's always been solid in terms of just pure gameplay. The storyline is excellent. The lore is excellent. The character classes all feel unique, and they all feel very, very varied. There's very few similarities between the classes. Even from playing the same role, it just doesn't feel the same based on different classes necessarily. The way a class will handle a role is very different based on the class. So for instance, healing as a summoner sacrifices a lot of your life to heal, whereas healing as a druid doesn't necessarily do that, and you also have access to things like bark shield and stuff. So it's just it's as far as gameplay wise, like, dungeons are excellent. At least back in the old days when you actually took time to clear DC. DC was one of my favorite raids ever. The three wing setup with each wing getting consecutively tougher as you completed wings, and each boss feeling unique and vibrant, each encounter being difficult. Even the ads in DC, old school DC, I'm talking like level 51 DC, were difficult at a point, and if you mismanaged the ads, you could die. Like, there was so much into the depth of those dungeons that you really can't replace. It's something that was so beautifully done. However, and I still feel this to be true, whereas the gameplay level continues to be excellent, the developers and the management of the game from a financial standpoint has continuously and increasingly been disgusting. Like, the way they have mismanaged this game, the way they have blatantly over saturated this game with cash shop and microtransactions has ruined this game to the point I'm not even sure if it's recoverable at this point. And when I say that, I don't mean like I'm saying that from a place of I've never played the game. I've just looked at it recently and I thought, oh, it's pay to win. All I hear is pay to win. If you look in any circle, the first thing you look up is Allods, you're gonna see the game, and then you're gonna see it's pay to win. Anywhere. I'm talking YouTube, I'm talking Reddit, I'm talking Twitch, I'm talking like everywhere. Every game circle has this game marked off as just a pay to win game. And then if you really look down into it, you'll see numerous players just like me who are mostly long-time players who will say this game is beautiful, it's excellent, we loved our time in this game, but the cash shop has ruined it for us. And it's like one of the saddest things for me to have to say that this game was really, really fun. It's still really, really fun. Even in I've been playing again for about a week now. Even in the week, because I re-leveled the character from scratch all the way up to max level on the new server on New Dawn. I did that with level 1 runes, so literally no cash up at all. And it was just so much fun again to re-dive into a game that I haven't played in so long. And I was able to remember a lot of the zones, I was able to remember a lot of the quests, I was able to look back and go, oh my god, I hated this quest. I was able to redo, especially I have an ever-going problem with escort quests, but that's its own story, and that's for another time. But there's just so much beauty to this game, and the cash shop is just in such a place where I don't know how you would even begin to attract new players to the game. It's very, very hard to even break down how you would attract new players to the game. Like when I look at the game, and I was never really huge into the cash shop anyways, I used to invest my time and energy instead of investing money. And so I would create guides. I used to create guides on how to farm gold. I used to create guides on how to do dungeons. I used to create guides on just about every aspect of Allods, in terms of from a free-to-play player standpoint who had gotten to a pretty normal point in cash shop items. I never had Pat 5 because I just wasn't willing to spend the money on Pat 5. Pat 5, I looked it up and did the numbers today, would cost me $117 to get Pat 5 from where I'm at right now after 7 years of play. Now, could I have continuously invested into it over the years? Yes, but there's so much other stuff to invest into over the years that also has a similar price tag that it would have been very difficult to reach those standpoints. Just my runes alone, and I don't even have high runes at 7s, costs about the same amount of money. Just my mounts alone at the same price tag cost about the same amount of money. And there's item after item after item after item. This doesn't get into things like stat scrolls. It doesn't get into things like extra ruby scrolls. It doesn't get into things like things like the battle shell. It doesn't get into things like any of these things. All of these things are all gonna run about the same price tag. And I was doing this as a free-to-play player because at the time, which was a few years back, I felt like if Allods made changes then, that there was still a way to save the game, because there was still enough of a player base that was interested in saving the game. And there was enough of a player base that was interested in still being invested into the game beyond the cash shop. In fact, and I'm talking directly to you, Allods community, I actually emailed you guys directly and said I will personally exclusively stream for you guys every day hoping to rebuild the community and bring in new players. And at the time, you guys looked me, at least, well, you didn't look me in the face, but you sent me an email in response and told me there was no room in your budget for streamers and you guys had no plans for streamers. This was said to me, and I looked at that and went, oh my god. This was before Twitch even got to the point it's at today. This was years back. So Twitch wasn't even at the peak that it's at now. And I was planning on streaming nothing but Allods at that peak. Right before that peak. Right before Twitch really took off, I was planning on streaming nothing but Allods. I was literally just planning on doing that. The net loss of player base from that standpoint at the time, from my standpoint, would have been so huge for this game. Because I never spent huge amounts of money in this game. I always invested the time and effort and said, okay, if you invest time and effort, you can still be competitive. And for my part, I still had very competitive, very enjoyable moments, even in PvP, even without spending the most on Cash Shop. Because at that time, when I made that video and when I discussed everything and when I talked to you guys, the Cash Shop was not so outrageous. There was still a fairly balanced amount where you could really kind of get away as a normal player, as a free-to-play player, and it wouldn't feel like you had no chance to catch up to anybody. It still felt difficult, it still felt like there was a hill there, but it didn't feel like it was a mountain. It just felt like a hill. It felt like, okay, if I really spend my money well in-game, I take the time, I can keep working towards my goals, and I can be competitive. But having played again, I just don't know if that's still there. Like when I was I sat in National Academy today for about 50 minutes. And just looking at characters, not even really trying to do anything, just looking at every single character who came in the room and left, came in the room, came in the room, came in the room, left. And the lowest runes I saw were 9s. Like that was the lowest runes I saw. And there was at one point where the lowest runes I saw were like 13s. At one point, it was like 11s to 13s was like everybody in the room. Everybody in the room was like 11s to 13s. Everybody in the room was like fully geared. Everybody in the room, like it's very, very difficult as a new player. Like to an extent, as a new player, when you look at something like that, it's cool because you go, okay, great, that's what I can reach when I get to a higher level. Because you know, when you come in, when you come into any MMO, you always start in the scrub gear and then you work your way up and you get gear that kind of looks like mine, like how I look. This is actually the Dead City Dungeon gear set, one of their gear sets. The Pegasus mount is my own mount, but this is one of their gear sets from Dead City that I've completed. So it looks really cool because you think that's attainable. However, at this point, I don't even think that's attainable for a normal player, let alone the amount of cash shop higher level players. And I'm not doing this video to bash high level players or high cash shoppers. If you have the money and you want to invest into a game that you like, I'm not going to tell you not to. That's your business, that's your money. But it's hard, and even you guys can acquiesce to this, it's very difficult for the everyday player who's not necessarily rich or not necessarily has the funds to invest into that to get into the game. And if those average players aren't getting into the game, the player base becomes very, very small because you're not actively reaching out to a wider variety of people. When you're trying to develop a game and keep the player base healthy, you have to appeal to as many people as you can to draw them in. For instance, WoW has fully dedicated RP servers. Like, fully dedicated RP servers. Those people really don't even really play the game. They don't, in terms of like, they don't go do dungeons to that level, they don't do certain things to that level, they're not really there for that. They literally get into the game and they do roleplay stuff. And it's not just WoW. I'm just using WoW as an example because it's another MMO with so much longevity, and Allods is always compared to it as a WoW clone. But in terms of games like that game has so much staying power and has had so much staying power. So the formula for staying power has been written for years. It's not really different. Now the difference is the way that you guys approach the funding of the game. Now Allods was free to play on release, and then WoW has always been subscription based, and they've just maneuvered the subscription cost. But I don't think either way inherently won't work. I think WoW works for its audience, and then I think Allods could have worked for its audience if you understood your audience, and if you took the time and care to work with and discuss things with your audience in a way that you could keep developing the game in a healthy way. But from what I've seen, and this may be different, and if it's different, fine, people can go out and tell me, but from what I've seen and what I've experienced personally, the Allods community and the Allods managerial staff are like night and day as far as whether they communicate or not. Like, you guys give very, very, very little to any actual feedback, actual time investment into your player base. And then you continuously buy bigger items. And of course, the players who are at the highest level of cash shop are always going to buy those items because they want to maintain the highest level of items. And again, this is not a bash for them. That's their right. If they want to maintain that level of dominance, you have to work for it. If they want to maintain that level of cash up, they have to keep investing the money into it. And I'm not really blaming them because they've invested so much at this point. It would be ridiculous for them not to keep investing because, well, I've already done it to this point. I have to keep doing it to maintain it. And the only way they could basically not at this point is to leave the game entirely, because if they don't invest at that level of that high level of cash up, if they don't invest for even like a small amount of time, they'll fall behind almost indefinitely to an extent. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to say that the Allods is ever going to be in a healthy state again, because it's just so bogged down by its cash shop. And I just feel like it's such a waste of a beautiful game. It's such a waste of a greatly impactful game that could have had so much success. And it's not as if free-to-play games aren't having huge success. There's plenty of free-to-play games that are having ridiculous amounts of success right now. Fortnite is free-to-play. It's got a huge amount of success. People spend a lot of money on just cosmetic items. It's got a huge amount of success. What's another game right now? Like this, because battle royales have just taken off in general, and that's always gonna be its own thing. And most of them are free to play. Apex Legends, for instance. Apex Legends is another free to play game. It's free to play. It's got a ton of microtransactions that are entirely cosmetic and are completely outlie the actual gameplay, and it's so popular right now. These games are ridiculously popular, and they're free to play. So it's not as if free to play games can't be ridiculously popular. It's not as if free to play games can't be successful. It's that you have to invest the time and the effort as a company into the game and into tailoring it so that the community will want to be attracted to your game. You can't bog it down with things in cash up that ruin the game, because if the game is ruined, nobody will ever want to play, and your player base will suffer for it, which, as far as I can see, the player base has heavily suffered. Like, if I go to my friends list, because I used to have a very active friends list, and I go to levels, it used to be super rare for me to ever look at this and see anything but every single character was at max level. Every single character used to be at max level on my friends list. Every single one. You could not get on this game and not see players. You could not get on this game and not know max level characters. And they used to have, I don't even know if this is still a thing, because I didn't even see it when I was leveling, but I also don't level normally anymore. I level as a reincarnate lately, so this might still be there. But I don't even know if they have the mentor system that they used to have, that used to show newer players to the game what a high level player looks like, and used to have them come and help them out with quests. That used to be a whole system that was like very well thought out and very well done. So I don't even know if that still exists. But after I go like 2 pages deep, and this used to be every single character used to be max level, all of these people have quit basically. If they're all at 85 still, they're all at 86, that's a whole patch, 2 patches behind. That means they haven't been playing since that. And then if I go another page deeper, it goes to 80, it goes down to 75. That's almost 3-4 patches ago. Which is probably about the same amount of years that I stopped, when I really stopped playing. So, but notice they're all at a similar level, and that's because these are the old level caps. These are all old level caps. These players stopped playing around these old level caps. And that's sad. A lot of these players I used to be in a guild with. Like 75, all of these players used to be a level cap. 70 used to be a level cap. 65 used to be a level cap. 70 used to be a level cap. 55 was a level cap. I have players at 55. So it's just, it's crazy to me how many players I just don't see playing anymore that I used to always see. I used to see them every day. I used to get on and be like, yo, hey, how you doing? How's your day going? We used to hang out, we used to run dungeons, Allods, Astro, raids, everything together. These players don't play anymore. And it's because of this cash shop issue that's been prevalent for years, and the player base has constantly talked about it, and Allods has basically given us a deaf ear to it. And I just don't know how you will ever think that's going to be sustainable, or how that's ever going to bring in newer players to your game when you're even alienating the players who invested the longest amount of time into the game. I don't know how you have success there. That's just it's ridiculous to me. I just don't understand that. So I say all that to basically say that it's from this standpoint, it's very difficult for me to see this game having any long-term success from this point. And it's very difficult for me to say that I would really seriously come back to this game and invest into it if things are going to stay the way they are. I would love to be able to come back to this game and play it every day and stream it every day and see tons of players on and have engaging PvP action and deep time diving into dungeons. I would love to be able to do that. That would be so much fun for me. See a way where I could bring back older players that I've never seen in a few years, come back and really enjoy the game again and really play with everybody again. But I just don't see that happening. At this point, I just don't see it happening. I think so many players who have stepped away from the game at this point have no intentions of ever returning. I think new players are scared shitless when they look at this game and think about joining and seeing the ridiculous amount of cash up that is talked about on different forums and almost all forums as far as gameplay is concerned. I don't know how this game will ever really survive and be healthy again like that. I just don't. To an extent, there's still always going to be a player base to an extent, but how big it is, I can't really particularly say. If it's particularly healthy, I can't particularly say. Even if it's gonna maintain itself for the next year, I can't particularly say. But every time I look at this game, it's just so difficult for me to see the state that it's in, because I spent so much time in it and I had so much love for this game, so it's very difficult for me to see so little player base on, and so many people that I knew step away from the game and not want to return. And I just don't understand how, as a developer, you can ever play a game like this and do something like this and not see the harm that you cause to the community. Now I think from what I've seen over the last couple of months or whatever, they've made a couple good strides and a couple good steps in the right direction, with the new server being pretty much cash shop free for the most part. That's a pretty good stride, but at this point, there's so many players that, again, the majority of the players that are still around have invested so much into the game. They're never going to leave characters that they've invested huge amounts of money into to go to a server where everybody's equal again. It's just not going to happen. It's not viable to them. It makes their efforts and their time and their investments seem worthless if they have to go do that. So it's unfair to them from that standpoint. Whereas new players, if they come in, they're going to want to go play in that server because it's more balanced. It has less cash up. It's not as unfair. So they feel like, okay, I can actually enjoy the game from a base standpoint here. But they'll get to the highest levels and there won't necessarily be anybody to play with, or there won't be a lot of people to play with, or it's just a tough spot. It's just a very, very tough spot. Allods recently made an article on their forums talking about looking for streamers and stuff like that, and trying to reward higher level streamers and higher viewer count streamers, but it's difficult to draw in people who want to stream for this game now, because there's too many base problems with the game to keep high level streamers who haven't been already invested into the game and haven't already played to kind of enjoy the game. Like, at this point, if you really wanted to, I'm gonna be honest, if you called up Pokimane right now, if you called up Asmongold right now and told them, hey, come play this game, we'll give you an account, do you know how much stuff you would have to give them on an account for them to even be somewhat competitive with an average player? Like, how would that even work fundamentally? Like, you know how twinked out that account would have to be for those people to be able to be competitive and even get a base understanding of the game, and then they would have to look back and go, oh wait, all these items are items that the normal player won't get at all, and they have to buy. That's not gonna work. That won't work. So just even bringing in high quality, high content streamers who are well profiled, that won't work from that standpoint, because the game is so ridiculously cash ups. It just wouldn't work. Like, giving them a fresh account and telling them, hey, get to top level and see if you can compete. What are they gonna do? Like, I think they would laugh at you, honestly, at this point. I think they would laugh at you. I think they would fundamentally look at you, they would look at the game, they would look at the state, and they would laugh at this point. And that is the most depressing thing I can say with honesty. Like, it's so depressing. It's depressing that that's the state Allods is in, because you guys don't want to invest properly into the game as developers. It's just depressing, and that's kind of just been my overall view of Allods since I've kind of returned for this week. It's been depressing. Like, it's been enjoyable to play the game. It's enjoyable to play on the new server. I'm not gonna delete my account. I'm not gonna sell my account. I'm not gonna do any of that stuff. I'll keep my account because it's nostalgia, and I can just log in whenever and just sit around on my Pegasus, go to my own Allod. All these things that I've accomplished in the game after years and time investment, all these things are still here, so I can just come back whenever. But do I think I'll ever seriously play again? I just don't know. I don't see it from here. I just don't see the game being in a place where I can ever be comfortable doing that right now. I just don't see it, unfortunately. And it's very, very unfortunate to say that, because Allods is a beautiful, beautiful game, and it deserves so much better than the way it was treated. But that's all I really wanted to say. If you guys have other thoughts and opinions, especially the Allods community, I would love to hear from you guys. Everybody who I haven't seen or talked to in a few years, as far as in-game wise, I definitely miss playing with you guys, and I just wish Allods was in much better state. I really do. But I'm gonna get out of here. I told you I wasn't gonna take it too long. I was going to keep it mostly brief and just give my opinions and my thoughts and my feelings on where this game is at. So, I'll catch everybody later. Hopefully not for the last time, but possibly for the last time with Allods. We out.